It's a global blood libel. Jews around the world are being accused of murder. They're being accused of nothing worse, nothing short of genocide. This is this is unthinkable. Doesn't make any sense. How are we supposed to respond to this blood libel? In the Middle Ages, they would accuse the Jewish people of murdering Christian children without rhyme, without reason, without due process. And that is happening in our civilized times today. Let's hear this answer and explanation on the Piers Morgan Show from Alan Dershowitz speaking to Piers Morgan, as well as a Palestinian journalist.
Israel's government is currently, with the way it's prosecuting this war in Gaza in the last few months, is very rapidly losing global support, even from key allies who do not think this is self-defense anymore. And they're joining the dots with what people like Smotrich are saying, and they fear there is a much bigger plan that is now unfurling, which is to get rid of all the Palestinians. And in relation to the number of children being killed, you know, obviously, you don't believe every statistic that comes out of the Hamas-run health authority, although historically their numbers have later proven to be broadly accurate. That is a fact. But the reality is we know from reporters on the ground, we know that probably 20 to 25,000 children have been killed here. This cannot be right, Alan, that this continues.
Well, let me respond. There was a war in Iran. Israel went in, destroyed much of the military capacity, and they killed an incredibly tiny number of civilians, very, very few, in the low hundreds, which proves clearly that the only reason that civilians have been killed in the Gaza Strip is because they're used as human shields. Because the leaders,
agree with that. I don't agree with that. I'll tell you why.
Wait a minute. Let me finish.
Well, OK, but I don't agree with your summation.
Okay.
But finish your sentence,
Yeah. My point is, when Sinwar hid, where did he hide? He hid underneath the hospital with 9 of his people. Israel had to kill all of them. And yes, they killed 16 civilians. That's proportional. Let me tell you, if Hamas hadn't done October 7th, if they hadn't used human shields, if they didn't use hospitals, there wouldn't have been a single person, a single civilian killed. Israel prides itself on being able to target, stop cutting me off, being able to target military targets like the Iranian nuclear reactors. When it destroyed the Iraqi nuclear reactor, 1 civilian casualty. Syria, no civilian casualties. Iran, very few. Why Gaza? Because they use human shields. Because they hide their commanders among the children in order to induce Israel to kill children so that Piers, people like you, can get on television and correctly point out that so many civilians have been killed. It's all the fault of Hamas.
Here's the problem I have with that theory, which is this. I hear it a lot. But if you look at the way that Israel dealt with Hezbollah, for example, a very carefully planned and well-executed plan that targeted almost exclusively the Hezbollah terrorists, right? Again, very surgical, very targeted.
They were condemned for that as well. They were condemned
I just don't believe. I don't believe that the combined brain power of Mossad and the IDF could not have come up with a better way.
Wait a minute.
Well, hang on, let me finish.
Mossad has no jurisdiction over Gaza. Let me just correct you.
But the idea that Mossad doesn't belong in Gaza. But the idea that Mossad wouldn't have known stuff going on in Gaza is for the birds. And I just cannot understand why, given the global dismay about what has been happening in Gaza, that with the destruction of 70% of Gaza now, with so many children being killed, everybody accepts that Israel's trying to go after Hamas, but they also accept and understand, because it's clear that way too many children are being killed here, and that the end goal of getting the hostages released is not happening, right? That the language from Smotrich makes people think there's a different plan going on here. And so my question really is,
he has no influence.
There has to have been a better way than just levelling Gaza to the ground. And I think it's been driven by...
I agree with you.
Do you not think?
No, I agree with you that there has to be a better way. And the better way would have been for Hamas to come out and fight in the open like brave people do all over the world. But instead, they hide behind children and babies. They use them as human shields. And that's why Israel has to go in order to dismantle Hamas. They tragically, Israel never benefits from killing a civilian. Why would any Israeli ever want to kill a civilian?
So why does it keep doing it, Aaron?
They lose in your court of public opinion.
Yes.
They lose on your television show.
Yes.
If they kill a civilian, they don't want to kill civilians.
What we're witnessing in this war in Israel against Hamas, is the battle between true courage versus true cowardice. A truly courageous person, a soldier, will stand in front of a baby carriage, putting himself at risk in order to protect the baby carriage. But what Hamas fighters do is, tragically, in a manifestation of true cowardice, they shield themselves behind the baby carriage, because they know that in the courts of public opinion, just like Alan Dershowitz says, they know that the world will be very, very angry with the death of a baby. But what are you going to do when the person who's trying to kill you, when the person who's holding your daughter hostage is hiding behind the school, hiding behind the hospital, hiding behind a baby carriage? It's incredible to see. I can't imagine in the history of the world a war between true courage and true cowardice. And it's tragic to see which side the media and many people in this world are choosing. Yes, it's extremely painful to see the casualties of war. It's extremely painful to see the collateral damage. The death of innocent civilians who really have nowhere to hide. But the law in Torah is that when someone is trying to kill you, you have to do whatever it takes to stop them. You can't just sit there like a duck and say, well, I guess there's nothing we can do. No, you've got to do whatever you can to defend yourself, even if it means taking the life and limb of the attacker, and whatever it takes to get to the attacker. It's very interesting law in Torah. When it comes to childbirth, that a child who's about to be born can sometimes endanger the life of the mother. In not so ancient history, it's happened that during childbirth is an extremely dangerous experience. And we've heard of these gut-wrenching stories of where the doctor will tell the father that we have to choose between the mother or the baby, because not both of them are able to survive. Today, thanks to modern medicine, this dilemma is mitigated. But it's happened many times in history that a child is endangering the life of the mother. According to Torah, this child has the status of a rodef, R-O-D-E-F. Rodef in Hebrew means a pursuer. A pursuer is someone who is trying to kill you. And therefore, when someone is trying to kill you, you're allowed to do anything, whatever it takes, in order to stop them from killing you. What we learn from the fact that a baby, a newborn child who's not even being born yet, in the process of being born, is considered a rodef, putting the mother's life in danger, teaches us that you are allowed to stop someone from killing you, whether they're trying to kill you on purpose or whether they don't even realize that they're trying to kill you. A modern example of this might be when a car is driving down the road and it sees someone in the middle of the road. So the car might swerve onto the sidewalk. Now on the sidewalk, there's other pedestrians as well. So what's happening is that this car is actually putting in danger the pedestrians on the sidewalk. In theory, the pedestrians on the sidewalk are allowed to stop the car with gunfire or whatever it takes in order to stop that car from proceeding to kill them. Now, even though the passengers in the car might not have any intention of killing, they might not be pursuers, but because they're part of that effort, because they're part of that vehicle, that part of that initiative to take the life, to end the life of the victim, they are called a rodef. And tragically, that's what happens in the case of the human shield. When you have a terrorist, a cowardly, weak terrorist who is hiding behind a child, then what happens is that child effectively becomes part of the rodef mechanism, and therefore, if the only way to stop the terrorist from taking the life of the victim is by taking out the innocent bystander as well, then that then is something which is actually sanctioned by Torah. So it's a very, very tragic reality where the terrorists in Gaza have weaponized human compassion to sadistically, deliberately place innocent civilians, innocent Arabs, in the path in front of those terrorists, knowing full well that Israel has no choice but to take out Sinwar and his henchmen, to take out all of these terrorists with the innocent men, women, and children around them. But they have weaponized compassion. They have weaponized human kindness, and the world is reacting in the way that it is. Israel has no choice but to stand up and protect herself. Israel has no choice but to bring her sons and daughters home, those hostages still languishing in Gaza over 21 months later. And Israel needs to do whatever it needs to do in order to bring them home, even if it means the life of the terrorist and the life of those protecting the terrorists. Now, to what Piers Morgan said, that Gaza Health Ministry is proven to be accurate, a total baba maisa. The Gaza Health Ministry is the diplomatic arm of Hamas. They too are terrorists and cannot be trusted in anything that they say. Within moments of any bomb taking place in Gaza, you hear about the Gaza Health Ministry knowing exactly how many victims were killed in the attack. No statisticians in the world will be able to ever come up with that. It must be that the Hamas has either the most advanced way of counting casualties, or the most corrupt way of counting casualties. Whichever way you look at it, if Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza, then whoever is in charge of this genocide needs to be fired, because they're doing the worst job in the world, where the population in Gaza is actually increasing since October 7th instead of decreasing. They're not doing a genocide in Gaza. The population is not mitigating. It's not diminishing. It's the terrorists and the civilians that they deliberately put in harm's way that are tragically being killed. But when someone rises up to attack you, you have no choice. The Torah, the Bible tells us you have no choice but to stop them. You cannot be a sitting duck. May God Almighty, the master of the universe, the author of the Torah, inspire all of humanity to find peace and compassion, peace through strength, not peace through weakness, but peace through strength, because sometimes war is the answer. When you're dealing with someone, with an entity, with a group, with an organization whose baseline is the death of all Jews, there is no way to meet them halfway. It would be unconscionable. It would be aggressive. It would be violent to meet them halfway. It's only by being strong against the terrorism, showing them that their behavior will never, ever be tolerated. It's only when the nations of the world stand up and say, you know what? This is unacceptable. It's only when civilians like you and me stand up and say that this weaponizing of human compassion is the most sadistic insult to humanity and will not be tolerated, that the terrorists then will be able to realize that what they're doing is absolutely wrong, and winning them no friends by standing up to them like journalists who stand up and condemn Israel for these death of civilians. We're only helping the terrorists. Let's make sure to be on the right side of history.